Day 21 in the bubble. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Real Kyper at Noon show. I'm Nick Kyprios. And does it feel more than just 21 days? Is it just 3 weeks? It feels like it's been so much more. And I'm looking at the lineup tonight, and I don't see a game till 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm sitting there going, is that a typo? Come on, there's nothing at 12? Nothing at 3, at 5? No game till 8 p.m. tonight? I could go on vacation. I could load up the car. You know how many places I can go to before that 8 p.m. game starts? That truly would feel like a vacation. One guy that may feel like he's on a bit of a vacation now is Jon Cooper. How about his body language and his comments after they eliminated Columbus in their best of 7 series? And you almost feel like Cooper's reacting like he just went to the Stanley Cup final, not out of the first round. Like, think about that for a second. We're barely out of the first round when we're not, with some teams still playing, but it feels like so much more. And now we look at other series and we watch that Montreal-Philadelphia series that was at times almost unwatchable. It was, what do they describe it? And we'll talk to our first guest here, Darren Pang, a little bit about it, but a chess match. When you hear play-by-play men and color commentators refer to hockey games as a chess match, that's when you got to think twice about watching the rest of it. That is the worst thing you could describe a hockey game as, a chess match. If I was a producer, if I was a director, I would tell those guys, never use that. Never use that phrase, because I can hear the clicks. Nobody wants to watch a chess match when they're watching NHL hockey. But guess what? That Montreal Canadiens Philadelphia Flyer game was anything but a chess match. And how about the job of Kirk Muller? He benches Gallagher. He takes away ice time from all his key guys like Jonathan Drouin. And we heard Gallagher in the post comments after game 4, and he was pissed. And you knew Kirk Muller was sitting there going, good. Because that's the one thing you do. And I tweeted this last night. You wanna mess with a guy, a hockey player, take the one thing that means the most to him. Ice time. You take that away from him, and now he's scrambling. And that's what Gallagher did. He fought, he scrambled, he crawled, he scratched, and he was a game changer. And the main reason why Montreal has now extended this series, and now we got some bad blood. Good. No bad blood in chess. Nothing. The other night, bad blood. Kotkaniemi's hit on Sanheim. What do we think? Vulnerable? Yeah, it was a little vulnerable, but he has to know someone's coming. I didn't have any trouble with the hit, other than it was a little high. Kotkaniemi, as we know, it's taboo now to drive up and elevate in a hit. You want to hit a guy now in the NHL, you go shoulder to shoulder and you try to stay on the same plane. You start climbing up on a hit, and it could get you in trouble here. And if you watch Kotkaniemi's toes, they're up. They're not down, and they're not level. They're actually pointing towards the ice. So that could have got him in trouble. We don't suspect anything more than the 5-minute major in the game misconduct. That's penalty enough. They gave up 2 goals off of that penalty. That could have easily knocked the Montreal Canadiens out of the game. The one the NHL should really look at is the Niskanen cross-check on Gallagher. I don't care what era we're from. In the 1980s or in the 1990s when I played, that's a suspension. That is a suspension, and it could be 2. My guess is it should be 1. Now, the last time we had heard, going into noon Eastern here, Gallagher was being assessed. There is talk about possible damage to his face, a fracture. If that's the case, we'll probably hear more about that in the coming hours here. And there's really the beauty now for the National Hockey League and their suspension protocols here is they're not in such a rush if it was just a regular situation where there's travel, there's getting people together on a conference call. It's easy now. Everybody's under a bubble. All you have to do is say, okay, we're going to have a hearing now, and everybody's there. So they're not, it appears to be any rush without needing to address a hockey game in that series tonight. So we'll probably hear something later on in the afternoon. Before we get to my first guest, Darren Pang, by the way, back by popular demand. Just a note that we're going to also later on in the show touch on a segment which I have been pushing for quite a while here, and it's Betting 101. And I've said this all along. I know I'm part of this new world in terms of online gambling and pro sports betting. We do know our publicly traded company here, onlinemovement.com, is i3 Interactive, which is the founder of blitzbet.eu. We do know Gary Bettman has been all over this for the last year and a half. He's signed some big deals, including MGM. So we are going to all go through this together. So we're going to get Joe on, Joe Holka. And of course, Joe, as we know him, is one of the co-founders here at linemovement.com and the chief content officer here at linemovement.com. The good part is he's a hockey guy, which I love. So he's not only gone down this new venture, but he played the game. So he understands it. He knows it. Division One. Now, I know Doug McLean's out there questioning how good he was, as he did yesterday. But I think it's going to help me better understand what the heck is going on with all this gambling. I want to know, if I got $5 tonight and I don't want to go buy a Starbucks coffee, where do I go with it? What do I do with it? How do I get a chance to make money off of thinking I know a little bit about the game? Maybe I go against the favorite tonight. So what does that mean? What is the betting line? What is a puck line? We're going to find all of that out and more from Joe Holka later on in the show. As promised, okay, he was so good last week. He was so amazing. In fact, I think he had the most likes. And if I check right now, I bet you you're hitting your like button right now for him. And that's going to piss off Doug McLean. You want to piss off Doug McLean? Hit more like buttons than anybody that has been on the show before, especially Doug McLean. Panger, we really appreciate you coming back on the show. You were so good last time. We just said we got to get back into this. And I've said this now for the last little while. The best series out there right now, by far, is St. Louis and Vancouver. We know you're doing a terrific job for Fox covering that game. You might be a little tired right now, and that makes us appreciate you all that much more. But is it a stretch for me to say this has been a fantastic series?
I think it's been a heavyweight series, Kipper, like a big boy series. Other than the first game, there was a lot of penalties called, and I think the Blues went to the penalty box far too often, although they were still trying to figure out the officiating. And I think a lot of the players are thinking the same thing, Kipper, like, what kind of game are we going to get? If a guy falls in front of me, is it a tripping call? If I give him a little nudge from behind, am I going to get a cross-check? And so I think both Vancouver and St. Louis have figured that part out. And now I would call it a big boy series. I mean, my hat's off to Vancouver last night, trailing 3-1 and coming back and winning the game the way that they did and hanging on at the end. And Jacob Markstrom's goaltending, Jake Allen replacing Binnington, and Ryan O'Reilly's dominance. I don't know. The shame of it is that it's on as late as it's on. And I'll say this, it's, I'm in the St. Louis, that's central time zone, Kipper. It's an 9:45 puck drop for us. That's tough on our fans. I think it's been a little unfair that way, in that it's been that late. So, but what are you going to do?
And I think the networks are making a big mistake here, scheduling it late like that, because it has been a fantastic series.
Yeah.
And
St. Louis gets great ratings, Kipper.
It should be in prime time. And we know what prime time means. It's 8 p.m. Eastern. I know people out west hate hearing that it's all about the East. But as far as the league is concerned and where the money lies, it's all about prime time. And I think this series should be right at the forefront right now. Panger, when we worked in the Olympics, one of my favorite sayings out of you, and I've used it on occasion and I've stolen it, is momentum sapping. Momentum sapping. And I watched the goal that Ryan O'Reilly scored on the wraparound late, and then Sanford comes out in the first 5 minutes and tails end a power play goal. And I go, Vancouver's done. Grill marks on their ass. They're a Burger King Whopper. They're done. But no, they don't. They keep coming back at you.
Virtanen's goal was a momentum sapper. Troy Stetcher's goal in game one, the slap shot from the right in a 2-2 game, was a momentum sapper. So you like that saying, huh?
I do.
I think Bob McKenzie used to always wait for me to pull that one off as well.
That's right. That's right.
But I do believe there's times, and Kipper, I've been in the net. I've given up a lot of momentum sapping goals. You can feel it. I mean, the team doesn't even want to look back at you. They don't want to pat you in the pads. They just want to kind of go off to the bench, and maybe the next shift they'll come over and pat you in the pads and say, "Come on, big boy, we need a save from you," something like that. But and getting back to the late game too, just for 1 second, Kipper, when there were 3 games going at a time. I mean, you could tell the early games that ice was just a little bit better. The second game, late in the game, a little bit worse. And by the time you get that third game with 3 games, and it's a
basketball.
humid day,
it's a basketball. So the puck's a basketball.
Yeah, and it's hard to handle the puck. So, but I talked to a couple of players yesterday, and the consensus was that that the ice is not getting any worse, and it's staying kind of what it is. So the players are getting used to that. I talked to Justin Falk about that yesterday. So that's the good news anyway.
So we talked about how gutsy earlier in the week with Doug. Craig Berube was in a scenario where he had to make some tough decisions. It's never easy. And you've won a Stanley Cup to tell key veterans they're not in the lineup and go with some youth. And we saw that with Kyrou coming in. And now you're down and you're facing elimination. You're on the brink. You got to go back to your veterans. And I even include Binnington. In many ways, I shouldn't, because he's still young, but it's almost as if he got 10 life lessons in his Stanley Cup run last year.
Yeah,
so you wonder,
right.
Can you lean back on that? I got to think he's going to go back to Binnington. And that's not taking away anything from Allen, who we could all sit there and say, oh, he did more than his job.
Yeah. Yeah. This creates, it's a difficult decision. It's a hard decision. And just like it was going to Binnington, but I like that they went to Jake Allen, excuse me. I liked it at that time, Kipper. I could feel it. Like, it seemed like Vancouver had the book on him. It seemed like he was guessing a little bit. He was a little sideways on a couple of saves. And I said it on the air. I said, it's going to be time to change the goaltender, give Vancouver a different look. Jake's been outstanding in this, but at this time, and you mentioned some of the veterans, he couldn't play. Like Alexander Steen's played 91 playoff games. He couldn't play him. He's just been banged up, Kipper. It's not like he's made him a healthy scratch. The body's just been beat up, and he's missed a lot of time. So maybe he is a player that, after now having 4 or 5 days off, is good enough to go. We all know that Tarasenko's gone. He's back in St. Louis here. So there's not a whole lot there. There's not a whole lot for Craig to do, but I think by and large, they led 3-1. They were in pretty good control of it. Maybe what he does, he goes back to that Gunnarsson-Pietrangelo pairing and Scandella and Parayko, which I didn't think Parayko was very good last night. And he's a much better defenseman than that. I thought he had a bit of an off game. And then I think he'd go back to, Dunn and Justin Falk as a pair. He played Bortuzzo last night. So those are some of the decisions he's going to make. But the biggest one is going to be Binnington. Does he go with the Stanley Cup champion when the backs are against the wall? A lot of people tend to think so, Kipper. And, I didn't get that sense after the game with Craig Berube. But, as the day, 24 hours later, they'll all think about it. And they'll have a team meeting just like they did when Jake Allen went in the net. But what would you think if they went back to Binnington after what happened in games 1 and 2?
I think after it's a nice reset for Binnington.
Yeah.
He's been established as your number 1 goalie. He's coming off a Stanley Cup run. I'm okay losing game 6 with Binnington if he gives you a chance to win that game. I'm okay with that decision. I would never look back and listen, unless Binnington comes in and just is no good, then you can always question it. But if Binnington is solid and gives your team a chance to win, and maybe 2 or 3 goals is enough, then I don't think anybody could really argue that based on not only the run that he had last year to win a cup, but even this year. I mean, he established himself as a number one goalie.
He had 30 wins this year. He had the second most wins in the NHL. And he's got something that, I love. Goalie's got to have intestinal fortitude. He's got to have moxie. He's got to have big ones. He just has to. And he does. So, I think too, Dave Alexander's the goalie coach, Kipper. And remember last year during the playoffs, how we talked a lot about Jake Allen went on the ice and he basically simulated Tuukka Rask on certain plays. And they videotaped them. And then Jake Allen actually was part of the presentation.
What a great idea.
On games. Yeah, really good. And that says a lot about Jake. But now, now we go to Jake Allen being in the net for the last 3 and playing well, except for the 1 goal by Virtanen. Dave Alexander and Binnington be a real learning lesson for Binnington. He'd be doing the same thing. So they'll be pouring over Bo Horvat when he takes it to the backhand, because Bo Horvat was eating him alive. He had 4 goals. And it was forehand, it was backhand, it was, it was Deacon, it was, so, I mean, those are the things that Binnington now would be looking at to try to counter what a guy like Bo Horvat or Pettersson or JT Miller. That JT Miller's a horse, isn't he?
Oh, I love he's been so inspirational for them.
Man, he's good. Yeah, he's
off the ice, on the ice.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What did you think of his goal? I thought St. Louis or the league, and sometimes the league can call situations that you don't have to coach's challenge, which I think they should get rid of. I don't think the league should ever call down on anything and volunteer that information. It should be on a coach's challenge. But that's a different story. But I thought him getting his stick in and jamming it could have easily been a situation where you want to take a second look at that if you're St. Louis. I'm surprised they didn't push it.
Yeah, I was looking for more of a reaction from Jake. A lot of coaches, Kipper, they wait for the goalie and whether they think it's a goalie interference or not, if the goalie's making a big fuss about it, they don't want to not back up the goaltender.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
A lot of times they'll make the call. And I watched Jake. So, he didn't make a big fuss. He kind of looked a couple of times, but then that was it. And then nobody else did. I was also waiting in our broadcast in our studio, Kipper. We've got they call it the all 12 camera. And it's a real high end zone look. Like it's so high that unless guys right and left hand shots and maybe their tendencies, it's hard to see who they are. But as soon as that happened, I was looking at the bench because you get the shot. At least I go board to board and you can see it. And I saw a little glance from Steve Ott. He was looking. They look at the video right away. Sean Farrell's their video coach. Usually there's a little delay there. So obviously they felt like that puck wasn't fully covered up. I know in our day, Kipper, we had to completely cover that puck up. That's why we got whacked in the hand so much. And nowadays it's been kind of like, well, it looks like it's covered up. So the whistle goes and they move along. But with the gloves the way they are and how firm they are, Kipper, they're not like our old mitts, where we could just smother it like a pancake on the ice. Now, now, and you saw in the very first play of the game where Jake Allen played the puck in the trapezoid, and it's almost like those gloves are so new and so firm that he couldn't even play it. So I don't know. It's a tough one there, but I thought there would be more of a delay in figuring that out as well, Kipper.
Travis Green, much like Berube last year on St. Louis's run, is getting mileage out of non-stars or non-nucleus players. I watched Mott last night, and I've watched this guy kill penalties too, Panger, and I'm sitting there going, he's got more in mind than just icing the puck, this guy. And
he's not a clock killer. You know what I mean? He's not a clock killer.
No. This guy's a threat.
Plays. I think he's the third most, fourth most in one of those big games, the overtime game. He had the third most ice time of any forward on Vancouver in that game.
Yeah, and Travis Green does not have to apologize for playing this guy in the lineup and giving him those type of minutes. And some people.
The only thing, Kipper, the only thing is social media is a tough one there. But I at one point, Robert Thomas gained the zone, and the Blues are really good at this. When they gain the zone,
one-handed on the stick.
Yeah, but they'll push the stick to one side or the other to allow the player with the puck a better lane, or when they're about to pass the puck through the lane, all the veterans have shown the younger players on St. Louis to do that all the time. I mean, I said on the air, and I said on the air, I said,
I heard you.
He's holding the stick like it's a baby bird. I mean, you got to hold on to the stick. He was complaining
he's got one hand on the stick, and if you want to, if
it
you
wasn't
want
a whack.
Yeah, no, but if you want to knock the guy's stick out, you're going to get called on it. I think it was his shin pad that actually went through and knocked the stick out of his hand.
Yeah.
And that was on the Sanford goal as well.
Yeah. I was thinking of Travis Green afterwards. Like, what would Travis Green say? Complain to the referee that there should have been a interference or a slashing penalty? Or would Travis Green say, hey, son, hold on to that stick a little bit further?
I would agree with you that it might be
I think you'll say the second one. Yeah, me too.
But I will say this, and Pietrangelo has gotten better and better as the series progressed, and he is every bit the Norris Trophy candidate that his game is now gone to. But I would have probably played that one-on-one where he had no stick the exact same way he did. And I mean, at 54 years of age, that's how bad it was. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why in that scenario you try at the last second to kick the puck away from him and not either get a piece of him or even bear hug him, but take a penalty before you let him go in the inside on you like that.
Yeah, I know. Thinking about it, it's just go right to the chest as we look at it. When I was watching the play, I'm thinking, did he expect Tyler Mott to do that with one hand on his stick?
Yeah.
Likely not. Caught him by surprise. Probably thought he was going to go on the backhand and shoot it. Kind of took it for granted, but that's a lesson learned for Pietrangelo. Tough one though, too. You're ready to take a slap shot. You're on the power play. Your stick breaks, and next thing you know, you're down 1-0. But a beautiful play by Tyler Mott, but nonetheless going short side over the bar and in. That was a great shot selection by him as a left-hand shot.
And a great series, and not surprising to see this one go the distance if St. Louis is able to extend it. So I want to move on a little bit to another Canadian series, and that's the Montreal Canadiens and Philadelphia. I spoke earlier about Kirk Muller. A lot of people questioned whether or not you handle a guy like Gallagher like that. Not Gallagher. You want to mess with someone's ice time like Jonathan Drouin, who's been a bit of a polarizing figure, and people sometimes question him. That's one thing. But for Kirk Muller to bench Gallagher in Game 4 was a very calculated risk.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, it paid off big time for him and the Montreal Canadiens fans. And I know you dealt with Kirk Muller a little bit in St. Louis. What can you tell us a little bit about Kirk Muller and so far the job that he's been able to do with Claude Julien out?
I've loved it. I mean, that is a calculated risk. You're right about that. I've watched it close because Kirk's a good friend of mine. And I like to see the way Kirk coaches. I thought he did an excellent job in Carolina. Didn't get a lot of notoriety. And I'm shocked that he hasn't received any interviews or very few interviews to be a head coach. I think he's got something that the young players like. He's energetic. He's honest. He's a
player's coach, which we've seen now.
Yeah,
you know,
but now we've seen him make a hard decision, though, Kipper. Like usually the players' coaches are going to pat Gallagher on the back and give him more chance. And you know, Gallagher wasn't getting anything done. So, you know, it comes to a point where you've got a hunch and maybe you play a young grinder, a young kid that's got a little bit more to his game on that particular night, even though he doesn't have the credentials like Brendan Gallagher. So all in all, I'm happy for Kirk that it worked out. And Gallagher played. I mean, he played hard. This is no time for pouting and whining and, you know, complaining about not playing. Everybody's going through a tough time and everybody's sacrificing to be there. If you're not giving it your all, if things aren't happening, then you can't play. It's a do or die situation for every single team. And so I think Kirk Muller got what he needed and got what he wanted out of a little caged animal, you know, in Gallagher. And I love Gallagher. He's full of piss and vinegar. And I love that part about him, you know.
You might be, there was an incident in this hockey game where Nick Suzuki tapped Carter Hart's head after the Armia goal. And you might be the perfect guy to ask. And we watched Kelly Rudy, who I worked with at Hockey Night in Canada. He was livid. He hated it.
Yeah, he was really upset about that, huh?
He spoke of it as if, I think he took a two-hand bat swing to his head. But Kelly is of the old school where you do not show up or disrespect. And that touched a nerve with Kelly Rudy. And I know you saw it.
Yeah.
Me personally, I it didn't bother me as much. I mean, I understand it on a player's perspective, but I want to get your thoughts on it first.
If it was a different player, I would have been more bothered by it. I don't think Nick Suzuki meant anything by it. It almost looked like it was just something that he just kind of instinctively did, while he was going by.
Which he said in his post-game
and
comments.
That's kind of what it looked like to me. And it's not like he kept his glove on his helmet the whole time and, really rubbed it in like that. Like we're doing the series with Antoine Roussel, who tries to get in the kitchen of everybody in a game. If it was Antoine Roussel who stood over the guy and did that for a long period of time, and you'd have an all-out five-man brawl going on right there. But it wasn't him. It was Nick Suzuki. It almost looked like they both knew each other, and it was like, hey, sorry, Carter.
Yeah.
Let's move on, But I wasn't as upset as Kelly, and Kelly's a nicer guy than me. So I was surprised he was so upset by it.
I think more than ever in the year 2020, we want to always do and say the right things. And there's good reason for that. And there's million examples of it outside the realm of a hockey game. But I watch now, Panger, and I worry about the league sanitizing the game too much. And, while I agree with Kelly 100% that you could easily call that a 2-minute unsportsmanlike penalty, okay? You could, because you don't want guys going to do that all the time. But our game, as much as anything out there, is just about as much of scoring a goal or making a beautiful pass as it is on what you get away with. And Nick Suzuki did it and got away with it. And there's a 100 examples in a game of what you do out there that isn't very sportsmanlike. And you push the envelope a little bit. Is it a spear behind someone's kneecap that no one sees but you and the other guy who feels it? Yes. Okay, it's all about that. So I look at Nick Suzuki's situation, and I look at it in the Montreal Canadiens, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And if anything, if it did anything, if it created a little animosity, good. We need animosity. We need people. We react to it. Okay, I tapped you on the head. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Come on, I'm right here. Let's go. That creates storylines. That creates more. And we haven't seen that in this series. And just like that, it's all back. It's all back.
Well, you mentioned
Niskanen, and Suzuki.
Yeah, you mentioned that being a like more of a chess match. But I looked at that the Kotkaniemi hit, and I like listened to you as you open up the show, Kipper. And here's one thing that I don't think and I'm not saying young players. I'm sure there's older players in my era, like our era or later, that didn't know who was a right or a left-hand shot, or maybe didn't. I was always big on that as a goaltender. I was always, who is a right-hand shot, who's a shooter, who's a toe dragger, what's their tendencies. And but the one thing on that play with Kotkaniemi is it is a left-hand shot that's his right side's into the boards. And on the follow-through, the follow-through is going to be that way. So after the follow-through, I think if he hits him right away, then it's going to be a good hit. But once the follow-through goes this way, he's going to get him in the numbers. He's going to be in a bad spot. So if he was a right-hand shot, he would have fired that puck like that, and he would have taken that hit right in the chest. And so I think there lies the difference of that hit by Kotkaniemi.
And give Sanheim a little bit of credit here. And Panger, as much as anybody, because you played the game, what it means to get a puck in deep. Okay. And when you're committed to get a puck in deep, that's where that saying lies take a hit to make a
Hit
play.
to make a play. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's the example right there.
Mhm.
And we get plenty of that. And
Yeah.
there are hundreds, if not thousands, of examples when you're talking about a team trying to win a Stanley Cup in the playoffs. And
Mhm.
he knew it. He knew he was going to come. But guess what? Getting the puck in deeper at that moment was more important to him.
Yeah.
And give him all the credit in the world for doing it. And yes, it put him in a vulnerable position, but yet, you turn the puck over in the neutral zone, you turn it over 3 feet inside the blue line, or you turn it over 3 feet outside the blue line and you don't get it in. It could cost you a series. It could cost you a chance to put your name on a cup, man.
Yep. The
And
old gray area, huh?
that's our game,
Yep. Yep.
right?
That it is. The lines are so important at that point. So I think that's a good lesson for Kotkaniemi. And the other part is, I don't think a lot of people understand the rule of boarding. I mean, if it's called boarding and there's no blood, there's no facial or head injury, then it's it's the original call. But once there's blood, this is kind of an odd rule, don't you think, Kipper? It's an odd rule because now the referee turns around but there's blood. I
Yeah.
mean, his face gets schmucked up against the glass, got a visor on, and it's an automatic. There's no negotiation.
Yeah.
It's an automatic 5 in a game for that. So that's one of those calls. It's just like the 4-minute high sticking call. Like you can almost take a guy's ear off or throat out, but there's no blood. It's 2 minutes, but then there's a little wee nick somewhere, and it's 4. It's 4. Because he's got a little bit of blood on him. It's kind of a silly couple of rules there, to be quite honest with you. That's just my opinion. I
want to tap in a few more series with you. We saw Tampa Bay, and I spoke off the top of the show about watching John Cooper react, and it seemed like he got all the weight of the world off his shoulders, beating the team that embarrassed you in Columbus not too long ago. And he was quoted as saying, 422 days later, but who's counting? Which is quite funny. But then you're reminded, okay, it's just the first round. You could lose in the second round, and it won't really matter that you beat Columbus. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Did you see the fist pump he gave after he shook the hands of I think it was Korpisalo, who was brilliant in that series. And he gave it the little.
The one thing that stuck out for me in this series, and we know Tampa Bay's got stars, and Kucherov's one of the biggest. Points turned himself into one of the biggest, and they were instrumental in closing out this game. Kucherov had 3 assists. The final 3 assists on the goals. And yet, we look at Tampa Bay and we remember this series for Coleman and Barclay Goodrow, Cirelli. And that to me is a big difference in Tampa Bay's look now.
A real likable guy, Zach Bogosian, was kind of lost to the shuffle there a little bit. Remember, he sat out with Buffalo and just, decided he'd wait for a trade.
Panger, he was offered to a few teams. Even the Leafs didn't want him. The Leafs didn't want him. They had no use for him. And now he's on a contending team playing 20 minutes a night.
Mm-hmm. And they made, remember, Luke Schen's still on their roster, another big right-hander. And I think what Tampa Bay did learn too is that you got to be mean in front of your net. Like it's fine to have a good transition game and get the puck and do all these drills and puck possession stuff, but last year what they found out against Columbus was they'll go to the front of the net and they're not going to move. And so you need some big burly guys down there that are going to cross check and be mean and give your goalie a little bit better sight line. So and Zach fits in. He and like Kevin Shattenkirk, I know him real well. Kipper, he just fits in anywhere. He's just got that personality. Zach's got that personality.
And you know where his
Luke
strengths
Schen's
are.
got that personality. Yeah.
And you know where his strengths are and where his challenges are, and you just hope one overcomes.
That's right.
And he scored a huge goal.
Yep, set himself up for success.
Yes.
I mean, for me, Kevin Shattenkirk should get all the ozone faceoffs. He and Hedman, and then because once the faceoff's won and it goes back to the right point, all good players want to play with Kevin Shattenkirk because they know they're going to get the puck flat and on the tape and in a good spot because he's got tremendous sense out there. And he, as we saw last night, he's got a heavy shot as well. So I'm happy for Kevin, and that's a series 1 for Tampa Bay. Columbus had a great, I know they're not happy with what happened because they want to win the Stanley Cup. That's the ultimate goal. But But boy, they open the eyes of a lot of people, don't they? That's a hard-nosed organization now, and their expectations are to win.
How long is it going to take Tortorella to get over the fact that they blew a 2-goal lead late in this game?
No, he won't sleep for a while.
Did you
saw the press conference afterwards? Yeah,
yes.
It was rather quick. I mean, it's hard to, what's hard when Torts is, I mean, he's been kind of abrupt, and just for people that don't know, I've worked with Torts when I was over at TSN Kipper and I did the playoff runs.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'd last 30 days, those runs, 24, 30 days, and you're at the hotel and you travel back and forth. And TSN always liked using the coaches, and Sportsnet and Hockey Night did as well.
Yeah.
But if he was there for a little while, so I spent weeks and weeks with Torts, and just a great person, loves talking hockey. And but when you get him in that spot, if your question's not right, he sure gets frustrated by it. So
listen,
the guy that's asking the question better be ready to ask a really good hockey question.
I asked Jordan to get me the clip. Jordan, can we hear it?
We have the clip. We shall see how it goes. It's our first time doing the clip live on.
All right, we've never done this before.
We're also having Darren and live in studio for the first time, so a day of first. So we're gonna give it a try. Hopefully it goes well, and just smash the like button if it doesn't go well, or if it does, both of them. But we'll make it work. Here we go.
You guys fell down 2-0, and then after that, it's one of the most dominating stretches of play that you've had in this postseason. Are you guilty then of playing the clock there in the final 8 minutes?
No.
2-goal lead.
Come on, Jordan.
No, they had 3 shots.
Come on, Jordan.
It's playing right now.
Next question, Neil McHale, Inside Hockey.
Hey, John, I know it's hard after the series loss to really compress your thoughts, but what has this whole experience been like, being in the bubble, being so close to your players, working with them on a day-to-day basis, and just mentally seeing them come back after a pause in times that have been unlike any in, human.
You know what, guys? I'm not going to get into the touchy-feely stuff and the moral victories and all that. You guys be safe.
You guys fell down 2-0, and then
so we got it to play. You guys couldn't hear it. We'll get that for next time. But the crowd heard it. The people at home, the faithful, they heard it. So we're good to
go. Perfect.
So I'm with you. There's so much to love about Tortorella. And he would be a guy for me, Panger. I could drink all night with that guy, hear stories. And I would also know deep down, I have no problem getting into a trench with this guy. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I've had guys, I forgot way back when. You played with Wayne Presley, right?
Yeah, I did. Absolutely.
So Wayne's a good buddy of mine. We live on the same lake in Michigan when I'm there for the summertime. And he was like, hey, when you run into Torts, say hi to him. And I'm like, where would you have known Torts? Like, I was thinking of all the teams he played for. He goes, he was our assistant coach in Buffalo. He ran our special teams.
Yeah. And
Dave Hannon and Wayne Presley were a big part of the penalty kill. And I always thought Torts was on the offensive side of it, like that's kind of his bread and butter. But Elvis, Wayne told me that no, he was on the PK and he was excellent at it. And back then the video wasn't the same as we have now. You're throwing the VHS tape in that, in that TV, and it's going, and anyway, he was well prepared and always very good. Yeah. So he's been around a long time, boy, a long time.
I'd have an easier time if he was just an ass all the time, good or bad. But he is fantastic. He's fantastic when they win. And I think when they knocked out the Toronto Maple Leafs, he even defended Sheldon Keefe because he was being attacked, I guess, on social media, and it got back to
protect the coaching fraternity. Yeah,
that's the good. Fraternity, and that's great. That's great. Yeah. But you want out of your coach a level of maturity when you lose, and you gotta be a little bit more graceful and classy than acting like a kid who got denied candy from his parents. But it's got to be addressed. People, there's people in the media that need your sound bites. They got to work. They got to put food on their table like me and you and everybody else.
Yeah, that's why I'm really impressed with coaches that have been around a long time, as long as Torts or longer. And there's might be a new writer that doesn't know hockey, came from he's a football columnist or something else, and you sit there, it's intimidating, I think, for these guys to walk into the hockey fraternity and have to ask a question. But I listen to Craig Berube every day. There's some questions that he gets asked, and I just, whoa.
Yeah.
But he always shows, at the respect to give an answer. It might be a shorter answer, but he does it because that's really what you have to do. It's your responsibility, in my opinion. So I do believe that coaches get worn down. I think we ask way too much of them in the playoffs. I don't think they have to address the media in the morning. I don't think they have to address the media every off day. Put it on the players. Let more players be interviewed. Anyway, they're the stars of the show. And that would frustrate me if I were the coaches, that they're asked to be on that podium every single day.
He's shown quite handily and easily that if he wants, he could coach another 5-7 years in this league and have good results.
Mm-hmm.
You watch him sometimes, especially on the games that he's not happy with, and you go, there's a guy that's had it up to here. You're right. He's had it. He's done. He's done. He's no patience. Doesn't understand the kids today or their level of commitment on a consistent basis. And here's a guy that's going to walk away. That's how he left us in that press conference, that he's just had enough. And it's a shame because if I was a team looking for a coach, he might be my first call.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a good opportunity, really, even though he was disappointed, to reap the pride of his players. Like that's kind of an opportunity, regardless of what question. Just to go on another tangent, was there anybody better than Scotty Bowman at answering but not answering a question and going off on his own and making it something else that he was more comfortable with, or maybe he was selling something else in some different area, and that's your opportunity. You got the microphone to do that. But I think he's got to be pretty darn proud. Corpusalo, Elvis, Merzlikins all year long. The gumption of Foligno and I think
Pierre-Luc Dubois turned into a superstar.
Oh my goodness. And
a playoff superstar. It's not even a regular season.
They were banged up in the season, and I don't know how they even put themselves in the playoff position. So they should all be really proud of the job that they've done. And by the way, I'm going to say this because I talk about Kirk Muller, and I go to bat for Kirk as a head coach. But Brad Shaw is another old-time buddy of mine, and he's been at it for a long time. He's been with great coaches, and he's had success. And I'm again surprised that he has not, gotten an opportunity to be a head coach, because he's a brilliant hockey guy. And
would he not be a natural guy to slide into that situation with Tortorella? I think has another year on his contract, and that'll be interesting whether or not he wants to play it out or he extends it, or more importantly, how much, if they do extend it, how much Columbus is willing to pay him. Because he is a $4 or $5 million coach.
He is, based on what everybody else is getting.
What everybody else is making.
The going rate's 5 times 5. They're giving it out like free Bud Lights in St. Louis, Kipper. 5 times 5.
You're jumping in on that one, aren't you? A little bit, the bucket.
Absolutely.
Okay, you've been great and very gracious on your time. Do you want to just talk a little bit about Ovechkin and the fact that they're hanging on and their bags weren't waiting at the bell with the bell captain on the way out of the bubble just yet? Can they do it, Panger? Only 4 teams have ever done it before, and no team has ever done it in a bubble.
Yeah, no team has ever done it in August. That's for sure, and no team may ever do it in August. Yeah, they can do it. I think chasing the game against the Islanders is a tough thing to do. I just think that you're going to play a grinding game. You're going to play a game that's going to be unselfish. You're going to play a game where you can't take any chances. You mentioned before about getting pucks in deep and doing all the little things. And certainly they still have the heart of a champion. And when I see TJ Oshie around and battling for pucks, and I know they've been without Backstrom, and I know Kuznetsov's got to take a different role, but can they do it? That's a lot to ask against a defensive-minded team. If it was any other team, I'd say yes, but I'm going to say no. I just think that Trotzy's team, they shut them down in that 5-man unit in their own zone. What's it called? Playing card 5?
Yeah.
Where all you look at, you see 2D, center in the middle. Of the wingers, they're all tight. They're all in your screen. They don't leave each other. They're so well connected. I just think they frustrate the heck out of you, and I think the Islanders will find a way to finish it off.
If we're keeping the theme of the the Washington Capitals, the sense is, and I don't know what's been said the last 45 minutes, but Backstrom could be back in the lineup, which,
Okay.
listen,
Well, if he's ready to play, he's ready to play, right?
You put him in, right? You got to put him in.
You have to put a player in if he's ready to play. If he's, to me, I always found a player, playing hurt, playing injured can be a real inspiration, but it can't just last for 3 minutes.
Yeah, so we have him as a game time decision. Yeah. And on another note,
I would say he's playing then.
Yes.
I would agree with you. And I've always said that to players. If you feel like you can finish the game and play your 17 minutes or give them a good 12, better than what another guy that's coming in can give you, Kipper, then you got to play. You go with your big boys. But if you can't and you're going to last 3 minutes, well, that's no good for anybody, because you're selfishly taking a spot just to maybe be a temporary hero. So I don't think Backstrom would do that. And I think that if he's ready to go, he'll be ready to go.
If Washington loses, are we watching Holtby play his last game as a Washington Capital?
I believe so, yes. I believe the transition is there for Ilya Samsonov. They still have they've got some depth in goal there. I just think that, unless he's willing to take a 2-year deal, Kipper, which I doubt that he would.
Why would he?
Exactly. I mean, why
2 years off the Stanley Cup?
Yeah. But if he looks around and there's plenty of teams out there that I'm sure are going to offer Braden Holtby a 5-year deal. I don't think anybody's going to go higher than that as a 30-year-old goaltender. But I do believe that he's still in for a good payday. But if I'm Braden Holtby, Kipper, I want to go to somewhere where I got a chance to win. I think once you've smelt that, once you've been a part of it, you don't want to go to a place, sign a big contract, and then be under the microscope every single night and get beat up.
The dumb salary cap, because the teams that are supposed to be giving yourself a chance to win can't afford you. That's the problem now with these guys in this salary cap, and
you want that
especially
luxury
a flat
tax
one.
back? Yeah, some are preaching for a luxury tax again to be thrown in there.
Well,
I don't think it's going to happen. I think
now.
This is what we've got here, and there's parity, and I'm glad that we've got an extended CBA for the next 6 years.
Horses out of the barn on that. One last goaltending theme, and we've got Calgary against the wall against Dallas. Talbot's done a heck of a job, Panger, and he speaks about a guy like Lundqvist and how much he learned off of him in New York. And Lundqvist has had some success facing elimination series and coming back and winning. Talk a little bit about what that would mean to a goalie and his mindset and the challenge that Talbot has now of extending this thing.
Yeah, well, you know what? But you're right about Talbot. First of all, I like the person. I just think he's just so even keeled. Goalies aren't weird anymore. I think goalies are they're the most normal guys on the team, Kipper. He learned from.
That's not fun when you say that.
Yeah, that's the way it is now. We're the normal people. I mean, everybody else is nuts. We're normal. That Benoit Laird did a heck of a job with a number of goalies, huh? I mean, you think of Antti Raanta, who's not the biggest guy, but somehow a goalie coach like Benoit Laird of the New York Rangers he does like the big guys. But even Lundqvist is only 6 feet. I don't know what he's got underneath that, inside that the equipment that he wears on the outside, because there's something in there that makes him look a lot bigger. But their technique is good, their poise is good, their positioning is good. Maybe guilty of staying a little deep at times. But I think under pressure, when the playoffs start, there's a lot on wraparounds and jam plays and cycles. And I think that's where a bigger goalie that stays deep and covers the low part of the net has success. So I think whatever he learned from the King that he can put into play in an elimination game is a good thing. I've been impressed with Cam. He's doing a great job.
And it's so hard when you lose the driving engine of the Calgary Flames, and that's Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, it sure is.
And you watch him sometimes, and there's a method to his madness.
Yeah, always.
But when you lose heart and soul type of guys, oh man, does that just take the wind out of your sails? And we can go back to even Winnipeg, and Paul Maurice's reaction to losing Scheifele, and he took it out on Matthew Tkachuk. But in reality, all he was feeling was we're doomed without this guy.
Precisely. Yeah.
And you just almost feel now Calgary may be in that same similar situation without Tkachuk. And I'm sure a lot of fans in Winnipeg are going, yeah, karma's a bitch.
Yeah. I'll go to my graves. I'll go to my grave saying that to Matthew Tkachuk, his feet aren't that quick or that good enough to be able to do something intentional like that. No chance. I'm playing golf with Brady and Big Walt on Tuesday here in St. Louis. So
you'll give us all the goods
on that. There you go, buddy.
Give us all the goods. Hey, thank you so much for doing this again. Out of the bullpen, you're like my Goose Gossage, man. You're coming out of the bullpen and you're throwing heat. Remember the buddy. Goose?
Absolutely.
Hey, great New York Yankee closer.
I'm thinking more like Phil Niekro.
Knucklehead or knuckleball?
Both of them.
I've got Joe Holka. I'm going through this whole betting thing, betting 101 segment on the Real Kyper at Noon show. I promised a lot of my listeners and followers that
I could learn something from you.
I'm going to figure this out. Are you a guy that likes to put a little bit of money down? Are you a blackjack guy? I mean, what do you do with your money?
No, I like the sports stuff. I like, especially golf. I get in a lot of pools and a lot of stuff in golf. And that's my number one passion for sure. Hockey's we have a goalie that can eliminate everything. And that's what makes it the guys that have a good eye for hockey. I'm amazed by that,
Well, JR told us he's right into it.
Yep, I saw that JR segment. He sure is. He sure is. He's into all sports. He's a lover of sports.
Jordan, is Darren allowed to hang around if we bring on Joe, or do we have to get rid of Darren?
Unfortunately, we do have to get rid of Darren in this case.
We are not that advanced.
For phase 2, we'll bring him back we'll get him to stick around. If Darren turns off his camera on his phone, he could stay the whole time. He's got that.
I'm going to play some golf. Look at
the Scotty Cameron. How could I not?
What's it say on it?
What time's tee off?
Holy jumping.
Holy jumping. We've seen it. Yes, we have seen it on a couple of Twitter messages, and I've seen it firsthand. Like 20 footers are nothing for that thing.
So I got to go roll the rock, big boy.
Darren, enjoy the rest of your series on Fox. Doing a terrific job. We look forward to the conclusion of that series and so much more of your telecasts. And thanks for doing this. And we'll see you next time on the Real Kyper at Noon show. Thanks, pal.
My pleasure, Kyper. Keep up the great work, buddy.
Thanks, pal. Okay. For all of you, I promised you Joe Holka. I promised you 101 betting. We're going to figure out how to put $5 down on a team. We're going to need about 5 or 10 seconds, maybe even 15, so we can set that up, and we'll be right back and get into it with Joe Holka. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. We're almost bringing it to the bottom of the hour here. I want to get into a little bit about what this has been all about right from the get-go. When I first joined I3 Interactive and linemovement.com, it was all about doing what I've been doing for 20 years at Sportsnet, and that's just bringing in a hockey content show. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you've loved it. We try to be open, honest, authentic. We want to tell you exactly what we're thinking, what we're feeling. We do feel like we have a lot more freedom to do that with all of you out there right now than I even had, with a big corporation. And I'm so thankful for that because I am having the time of my life. And I hope all of you are enjoying it as well. And if you are, hit the like button. We like that a lot. And we want you to subscribe. We want you to tell all your friends and keep it moving. But the other aspect in all of this is where we're moving as a league in professional sports in general with this online betting and more specifically sports betting. And we know what Gary Bettman said up until 18 months ago. He was against it. It's not for us. We don't want a part of that. And boom, it just changed. It's like it changed overnight. And we do know what this mobile phone means to everybody today. It's with you an awful lot. You get a lot of news and information out there. And it's just another way for you to engage in the game. And Gary saw that. It'd be a lot more fun to watch a game, perhaps if you turn down a $5 coffee that day and put it on your favorite team. And I'm interested in that. And I like going to Vegas, and I like sitting and watching or playing blackjack or roulette or throwing the dice a little bit in craps. So in saying that, I wanna learn a little bit more about this betting 101. So that's what I want to do. I want to bring you along, and maybe we can do this together. Now, my next guest, of course, I've known him since I first got on board here at linemovement.com. He's an ex-player, which I love. And it's debatable on how bad he really is as a hockey player, because Doug McLean just totally ripped him. He said, I'm still better than you are at his age, and it's not true. And Joe Holka is an ex-player. He's from Arizona, folks. So it's just not about producing Austin Matthews, man. We produced Joe Holka, Division I, okay, hockey at St. Cloud State. And I bring on Joe because Joe is, of course, our key guy at linemovement.com. And he's going to explain a few things to me and hopefully you on how we can move forward and maybe put a bet down on blitzbet.eu. Joe, thanks for doing this. I've been begging you to come on the show for the last little while. Thanks for doing this. I hope Doug didn't scare you off talking about maybe you not being as good of a hockey player as maybe others thought.
Hey, it took 26 episodes, but finally got the call up, right? I guess want to say thanks for having my back a little bit yesterday, right? That was rough. I couldn't even defend myself, and he's just coming at me like that. Definitely a lot of the things that he said probably true, but I definitely was a little bit better, I think, than he was giving me credit for. But yeah, regardless, thanks for having my back, Kipper. Jeez, I appreciate it.
Okay, so you come out of hockey, and just talk to me briefly about the transition from not playing hockey anymore to go into this fantasy sports industry. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it's a crazy story, right? So I was playing a little bit of minor pro when I was done with college. You guys like to talk about the coast here and there. That's where I was. And you kind of figure out quickly that there's only so much Netflix you can watch, right? There's so many hours during the day after you get home from the rink. So I basically got to the point where I just needed to find a different type of hobby, a different path, especially once hockey was over, which, as Doug made painfully clear, was getting closer and closer by the day. I just wanted to try and explore some other interests, right? And I knew that I was never going to be a person that was going to be extremely excited to go work in a cubicle or something like that. I have a finance degree from St. Cloud State, but I still wanted to try and stay in the game if at all possible. So I kind of fell into fantasy sports, into betting, into daily fantasy sports, and really fell in love with just building a brand, getting involved in content, video content, that sort of thing. That's what's been so fun, Kipper, is since the very beginning since we met each other, it's been bringing you along to like this completely different world, right? Like you have so much experience in major media and all of those things at Sportsnet, but this is totally different in a lot of ways. So I know I speak for Jordan. Just it's been a pleasure so far to bring you along, and things are only going to get better from here. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and the mentality from the mentality now that we are now in a scenario where you could bet on a team and not feel like it's if you don't pay up right away, Vito's knocking on your door to break your legs. I mean, those days are over now. It's just it's there for everybody.
True. Yeah, obviously being a part of a public company, i3 Interactive, we're doing everything the right way, right? So doing everything from a completely regulated standpoint. We're on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Our ticker is BETS. So we have to make sure that we're doing things the right way. But the thing that it comes down to for me is that it just adds a little bit to watching hockey, right? You want to be at the point where, like you've said many times, just toss $5 on your favorite team, sit back, relax, just make sure that you're enjoying it a little bit, but having a little bit of skin on the line's fun. That's what it comes down to. We're going to continue to do this type of content where we're just being really all out in the open, talking hockey. The great thing about this entire thing, Kipper, is that betting in general really benefits the people that know the game, and the people like yourself that have been around it forever. You can really jump on hot streaks. You can really jump into a lot of things, like people coming off of back to backs. You know it as a player, right? Like if you've
So
had a situation where you've just been like really on a tough long road trip, like the wear and tear on these guys' bodies right now.
so you're telling me, Joe, that all these years I've been just shooting the shit talking hockey with Doug McLean on Hockey Central at noon, people could actually take my information and it could influence them on placing a bet?
It's possible. Yeah. I think there's a ton of value in just listening to people that know the game of hockey really well. Like there's only so much you can do with data and analytics. And I can't wait to have a conversation with Doug at some point about hockey analytics for sure. So I'm sure we'll get there. But I do think there's a ton of value in just having good conversations with people that know the game and then using that information to make thoughtful types of bets.
Okay, one of the things that when I do go on blitzbet.eu and I see the teams lined up for tonight's action, there's a lot of numbers out there. There's pluses. Sometimes it can be a little intimidating for me. But what do I look for? What's the commonality in terms of the first thing that I want to always address when I go on a website to look to place a bet on a hockey game?
Sure. I mean, we're starting this at 101, right? Betting 101. So let's just like start with the very basics. Keep things super simple today. So if you were to ask me like what is a betting line in
Yeah.
general, like that's the first thing. Those numbers that you're
Okay.
seeing,
So
that's a betting
that's what
line.
I look for, the betting line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So like the easiest way to describe a betting line is that, like, as well as anyone, rarely in sports are there two teams that are just perfect matches, like a complete coin flip situation. Like naturally these favorites, these underdogs, they reveal themselves pretty quickly, right? So sports books like blitzbet.eu will look to kind of create that level playing field between two uneven teams, right? Because obviously their goal is to try and guarantee that they're going to make money on each and every single bet that they offer. So to do that, just again, in very general terms, they try and get the exact same amount of action on both sides of a game. So the same amount of dollars on both sides of it. So from that perspective, the sports book, they make their profit from something that's called the juice or the rake. There's a lot of different names for it, but it's basically a small percentage that the sports book takes off of the top. So they're basically getting their profit from facilitating that bet on their platform. Like we can get much deeper into that stuff, Kipper, but are you with me
Sounds
so
like a
far?
pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, right. It's definitely
Maybe I
easier
should be on that side and somebody else should be here hosting the show. So is a plus the underdog or is the plus the favorite?
So let's just jump into two of the most commonly found types of bets, right? So there's money line bets and spread bets. Like at the very
Okay.
basics, those are the two things that you're going to see when you go to a betting platform. So let's just start with money line. Traditionally, it's like one of the ones that we rely on the most in basically every sport because it's just for one given matchup. It's a straight up win-loss bet. The money line looks to kind of address those inequalities that we were talking about between those two different teams because of the odds on the favorite and the underdog. So what this means is you'll have to bet a little bit more money on the favorite than the underdog to win the same amount. So let's just do this. Let's jump into a quick and dirty, easy example. So blitzbet.eu, they've got the Dallas Stars today at minus 125. Calgary's at plus 115 tonight. So what that means, the Stars are favored to win. So a bettor would need to place a $125 wager on Dallas in order to profit $100. So if you're going to be betting on the underdog in the same game, so the Flames in this case, the same bettor can place a $100 wager, but they're going to profit $115 because of that underdog scenario. So does that make sense? Before I move
Yeah.
on to spread, are you with me so far?
Yes.
I'm throwing
Yeah.
a lot of
No,
stuff
no, no.
at you.
That's as basic as it comes. And most often that if they think that the game's rather close, I would go with the underdog. I mean, it's got a better rate, better turn.
Yeah, especially a game like hockey, right? I think one of the biggest mistakes that like a new bettor or someone that's new to speculating on sports in general is just thinking that they know a lot more than we actually do, right? There's a ton of randomness and a ton of variance involved in a sport like hockey or baseball. Again, as well as anyone, Kipper, playoff hockey, anyone can win, right? There's a lot of things that go
One
into
hot
it.
goaltender.
Exactly. So there could be a scenario where you get this underdog at really nice odds, and then you get that payout at the end as well. So there's a lot of different types of ways to approach it. But I'm kind of one of those people that likes to take some shots here and there for sure.
So if there's so many other aspects of it, and you know what, I want to bring you back. We don't have to cover everything
Sure.
at all at once, because we know there's terms like over unders, there's prop bets, parlays, all of that, even advanced stats that maybe you could share. But before you go, is there one other tip that you can give us that we could look for that may not be as obvious?
Sure. Let's bring it full circle to hockey a little bit, but before we kind of get there, let's talk about that second type of bet, right? So a lot of people are going to be talking about spreads as well. So like what's a little bit different is it's mostly in sports like football and basketball. So the
Yeah.
point spread is basically that margin of victory that sports books think that a team is going to win by. So basically, tonight the easiest example I can give you is the LA Lakers at -6.5 against the Portland Trailblazers. So if you wanted to place a spread wager on the Lakers, you would need them to beat the Trailblazers by more than 6 points.
Yeah.
So on the other hand,
7+.
exactly. So on the other hand, if you were to bet the Trailblazers at +6.5, they would have to win either the game outright, but they could also lose by 6 or fewer points. It's just another benefit in terms of betting on the underdogs. You actually don't have to win the game in terms to win your bet a lot of times. So like from a hockey perspective, you're going to hear about puck line a lot, right? So puck line is super easy to
Always a
explain.
half. Always half
Right.
a goal.
Exactly. So the NHL, they're able to combine those two things we were just talking about, money line and spread betting. So it's essentially a point spread of plus or minus 1.5 goals, but it also has a money line associated with it. So if we use that same example as before, Dallas and Calgary. So this time we want to bet the puck line at blitzbet.eu, and the Stars are at -1.5 goals at +125. Say the Flames are at +1.5 goals at -130. So, like in a nutshell, basically the Stars are favored to win. The Flames are the underdog, but the puck line is actually a huge advantage for the underdog because it levels that playing field a little bit, giving them a 1.5 goal handicap before the game even starts. So, like, although the Stars are the favorite to win outright, they actually become the underdog when it comes to the payout and the puck line. So that's probably the highest end we'll talk today. It is betting 101. But puck line's a really fun type of bet to make for
Well,
sure.
maybe next time we'll get a little bit more into the hockey prop bets, because my favorite part of Super Bowl is going to those parties and then filling out the sheets on how long I think the anthem's going to last and the
Mhm.
coin toss. And those are fun. Those are actually fun.
Prop bets are some of my favorite types of bets to make by far because a lot of the stuff that I do and the stuff that I've done in the past has to do with fantasy related things. And prop bets are actually some of the most inefficient markets out there. So if you're really spending the time to know what you're doing, whether it's in football, whether it's in hockey, just following along, a lot of times you can get some really nice action down on prop bets. And yeah, the fun aspect of it, the Super Bowl is the king of prop bets, right? So you can even bet on what color Gatorade the coach is going to get
Oh my
doused by at
God.
the end of the
No,
game.
they
It's
can't.
it's a ton of fun. Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm getting a text from Doug. He said, make sure you ask him straight to his face how good he really was in Division One hockey.
Well, I'll say this: when everyone, or when you play Division One hockey, your dream's always to play in the NHL, right? I'll say that there was definitely a moment where I thought I was a lot better than I actually was. I found that, I found
I
that
did that
out.
at the NHL level.
Okay, there you go. I found that out at the very lowest end, probably of pro hockey. But yeah, again, man, thanks for having my back. At least, there was some nice things in that whole thing. I wasn't even there to defend myself, right? But yeah, Doug's the best. He's never going to sugarcoat anything, that's for sure.
Okay, the one thing that I also do know, and I mentioned this the other day, that you've also done one-on-one consulting, and our CEO at our public traded company here, i3 Interactive, was is a guy that does fantasy football at the Super Bowl, and it's really true you helped him win $1 million? Because that guy has not even bought me a lunch.
Oh, Chris gonna love that you brought this up, by the way, his $1 million win in the Super Bowl. Probably something I don't think I've ever cheered so loud for, even when I had a lot of money on the line, right? So he
That's
actually,
amazing.
yeah, won that tournament on the last play of the game. So that last touchdown by Kansas City basically vaulted him from about 250K to $1 million. Pretty crazy. On my Instagram, I actually have a video of Chris's reaction
Oh my
for that.
gosh. You're going to have to play that for us.
We'll have to dig up that video. It's good stuff. But yeah, originally, that's kind of how I got my start. I was doing content, but I was also doing a lot of one-on-one consulting with either high stakes bettors, high stakes daily fantasy players. So that's how I met Chris. We've known each other for a little over a year. And that's kind of how this whole line movement, i3 Interactive, BETS on the Canadian Securities Exchange, is how it all started, right? So I've been here for a long time. It's nice to kind of see a lot of this stuff from a content perspective get off and running here.
How did he react when you said, see, it's worth my 70% fee?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that was like my first question that everyone asked me was, well, how much percentage did you have of Chris's $1 million win? So maybe he'll have to come on at some point and give you the details behind that.
Oh my, I better.
Chris is the best. He's someone that is a true hockey fan at heart for sure. So we have some awesome conversations that have nothing to do with business. Him and I truly friends for sure. So you guys, I'm sure, could talk hockey for hours on this show, and maybe we'll have to make that happen at some point.
Joe Holka, the co-founder and chief content officer here at linemovement.com, giving us a little bit of betting 101 when it comes to the game I love, hockey. Hey, Joe, thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Hopefully do more of this stuff in the future, Kipper.
All right. And for all of you, again, loyal watchers and listeners, thanks for joining us here on the Real Kyper Show. Our thanks to Darren Pang, who did a terrific job out of the bullpen for Doug McLean. He's back tomorrow to wrap up what has been a very interesting week. And the storylines continue, and they will only get more dramatic as we start dwindling down teams. They start leaving the bubble. For all of us here at Real Kyper at noon, again, thanks for joining us. Please tell all